So I do not know why you would get on a plane and go to another country and meet someone's parents and sibling and nieces and friends, travel their country with them when you know that you are going to end this relationship. Hey everyone, in my last video I abruptly announced that I left my job as an English teacher, and I had even announced over on my Instagram that I was going to be making more content more regularly, and then just suddenly I disappeared. So in today's video I'm going to talk a little bit about why. Alright, and before we get started, I highly recommend you grab yourself a nice hot cup of cocoa, a coffee, a tea, whatever warm beverages you enjoy sipping on, because I have a lot to say, guys. Everything kind of started back in March when I went home to visit my family for the first time in maybe 2 or 3 years because of COVID. Honestly, I have never been someone who got homesick. I've always loved traveling, and I've lived abroad before, and I've never felt pressure from my family like to come home or, you know, to be nearby. I think there's a lot of independence in my family and respect for like your own life choices. So I feel like I've been very lucky that my family supports what I do and they're very like understanding. I think one of the reasons why I never really missed my family like so severely that like I wanted to come home was because I always had the choice. I could just get on a plane and go home because I wanted to. Then the pandemic came and suddenly that choice was taken from me. It no longer was like when I want to go home, it was like when can I go home? I had a job, as most people do, and you can't just take off a lot of time from your job to go home, right? You can't just, you know, take off a whole month to go on a trip. And the problem with the pandemic was because of all of the quarantines in place around the world, like you couldn't just leave one country and go to another country because you had to quarantine when you got there and you had to quarantine when you got back. That would mean like you needed 2 weeks to quarantine there, 2 weeks to quarantine here, and then whatever time in between to actually spend there. Also during the pandemic, my dad was in pretty poor health. I didn't even want to visit home because I would probably put him in a lot of risk. I had this feeling of like, will I ever see my family again? It was really stressful, and I've never really experienced that. My dad has diabetes and a few other conditions, which makes him at higher risk that if he were to get COVID, then, you know, he would more likely have like a severe case of COVID. The fact that he was constantly in the hospital, he was also being put into like a rehab facility. Like he couldn't just go home after his surgeries. He would spend time in like a medical facility. The medical staff there had to take like COVID tests every week. There were people who were testing positive weekly. My whole family was just on edge while he was there because it just felt like he needs this care, but at the same time he is in such a high level of risk because he can't just stay at home, you know, in privacy and keep away from people. Finally, that came to a close because thankfully the fact that my dad was in these facilities meant that when the vaccines came out, he ended up being top priority for someone to get the vaccines. And I feel like a huge weight was lifted when he got that, because we kind of just felt like, okay, at least he'll have immunity, he'll have better chances if he, you know, he were to catch COVID. But I just remember all of that was just so stressful. I don't know, eventually things, you know, wound down and I was able to visit home. So I did finally this year with my boyfriend. But when I came back to Korea, I was so depressed. I remember spending the whole time, like my last 24 hours, 48 hours in America, just trying not to cry because I just felt sad. Like I just kept anticipating saying goodbye to my family. And I think all of that stress of like, I have no idea when I'll see you again. It felt like I saw you, but now like, is that gonna be, you know, the next situation where like I have no idea when I can see you again? Like, is it just gonna repeat? I think suddenly like all of it accumulated and it was hard. This was probably the first time in my life that I actually did feel homesick, because I remember I got to Korea, and granted I had a quarantine when I got back to Korea for about a week, and you know, I'm in this quarantine by myself, which isn't really helpful when you're sad and missing people. It's just to be alone and alone with your sadness. So it was kind horrible because I felt like the best thing I could have done was to come back to Korea and quickly met up with friends and got, you know, used to my life here. Like, again, you know, get back into the swing of things, but I couldn't because I was in quarantine. And I was so depressed, and I remember having this thought, like, why am I here? Why am I here? I want to get back on the plane and I want to go back. I was actually getting ready to start my new job, which I talked about, you know, in my last video about why I quit, you know, Epic. So I came back from the US, and then, you know, a few weeks later I started this new job, and even though I had this great opportunity ahead of me, I was just thinking, like, man, why? Should I just go back? Should I just run away and go back? But naturally I didn't, and I was like, I have a life here. There are reasons why I'm living here, and eventually I did kind of feel better and I got back into the swing of things, and I'm kind of fine now. But it was very weird because I had never really felt homesick, and when I say homesick, I don't really feel like I'm that homesick for my home country, like the United States. I feel like it's more of just I really suddenly now miss my family a lot. I spent, you know, about 7 years in Korea. I've only seen my family like 3 or 4 times total. And if you think about it, that's a lot of time that you lose. And I always felt like it wasn't that big of a deal, but now after living away for so long, I can really feel that weighing on me, and like what it really means to be away from family for so long. So back when I went to the US in March, I actually went with my boyfriend. This was our first time, you know, going to the US together, meeting my family. We had been together for about almost 2 years at this point. And for me, this was a really serious step because, I mean, we were flying halfway around the world, and he's gonna meet my family, and I got to show him around the US and show him around my hometown. It was a lot of fun. And then 1 month after coming back to Korea, we broke up. I was not expecting that at all. That took me totally by surprise. Granted, I had been with this person for almost 2 years. You know, a month after this trip, it really hit me hard. They didn't see this relationship as something like that they could see like long term, but they felt this way for like several months. So I do not know why you would get on a plane and go to another country and meet someone's parents and sibling and nieces and friends, travel their country with them when you know that you are going to end this relationship. I'm okay now, but honestly, I spent a lot of time thinking about that, what that meant. I don't understand. Maybe you guys understand. Someone comment below if you understand this logic. But essentially, at the end of the day, that relationship ended, you know, a month after I came back from the US. So I was already struggling with this concept of like family and missing home. And I felt very much like my boyfriend was kind of like my family here. I would go to him for a lot of different things. He was my support system, like my best friend. It was really hard to go through both of these experiences in such a short time period. And on top of this, I was probably about like a month or 2 into this new job. But essentially, like, you really want to impress people and do a good job. I had to go through that just, you know, and socialize with new people when I really just didn't want to talk to anybody at all, and I was really struggling a lot. So yeah, that was not a great time in my life. 10 out of 10, do not recommend. Actually, this breakup, I believe, happened like a week after I announced on my Instagram account that I was going to post more regularly. And I remember just thinking like, well, crap, because I just said that I'm gonna be more active and now I don't want to do anything. So I felt like I put out something online and then I disappeared for a really long time, and I made that like why I quit Epic video, and I've just been kind of smoke signals ever since. I've always been someone who is really interested in a lot of things. Like, I'm very multi-passionate, and I just have an infinite amount of interests and hobbies that I'm like, the human lifespan is not long enough for me to learn how to do everything that I want to learn and do. I think when it comes to like my hobbies and stuff, like studying Korean or like other languages, I feel like I can get into that flow for such a long period of time, but then my interests might diverge to like another thing, and I'm like, ooh, shiny thing, let's go look at the shiny thing, and I might focus on that for a while and take like a huge break. So I kind of feel like that's where I'm at with my Korean. Like, I like Korean and I do want to continue to learn it, but I feel like I focused on it for so long that I honestly just don't feel very motivated, or I don't really desire to study Korean right now. When I started to think about it, I realized no, I don't want to stay in Korea long term. I don't want to stay here forever. I love Korea. I have a lot of great friends here and I've had a lot of good experiences, but I just think that after a few years, I'm probably gonna go back to the US and spend time living close to my family, because it's just been such a long time and I really want to enjoy time with my parents, especially because they're getting older, and time with my nieces because they are very young and I want to be there for their childhood. Even though I plan on going back to the US in a few years, I don't know if it's gonna be a permanent move, because I've never really thought, do I stay in Korea or go back to the US? I've always kind of just thought, like, what do I do next? I've always kind of felt like the world is my plaything and I could just go anywhere that I can find opportunities to be. I don't know. I could go to the US, but I can easily see myself leaving there eventually after several years and going to like another country. And something that I haven't really mentioned that much on this channel, I might have mentioned it in Instagram a few times, but I feel like I probably didn't give a lot of context, but I'm actually eligible for Hungarian citizenship on my father's side of the family, although there's a process to that, which I'm going to probably explain to you guys in another video, because some of you guys might actually be eligible as well, and there's just a lot to unpack with that. And so if I am able to get Hungarian citizenship, it means that I would also be an EU citizen, which means that I would have the ability to live and work in several countries in Europe, including Ireland and France. And for those of you who don't know, I speak French to a fairly decent level, that I think more so than Hungarian. I also have the opportunities to live in, you know, other countries. But obviously you guys can see, like, I have gone through a lot this year and I have had a lot on my mind and I have a lot of ideas for the future. But obviously you guys can see, like, I really struggled with putting content out because I really felt like kind of pigeonholed into doing a certain topic that I felt is very limiting. Because if I'm being honest, if I do leave Korea one day, this content won't necessarily be relevant anymore. Like, I won't be able to continue this content long term. And although, like, I can make videos related to Korea now, and I will, because I do enjoy making those videos, I do want to experiment with other topics and things that I'm interested in, that I think that you guys might be interested in as well. I hope so. Yeah, so going forward, I think this channel will be changing a little bit, but not too much, not too drastically. I think I just want to try to, like, really feel out my style and what it is I want to bring to the table, so to speak. I have no idea what's in store for me, but I'm just trying to appreciate this moment in my life, this opportunity to take a step back by myself, focus on me. What makes me mean? What do I want from this life? I hope that you guys will stick around on this journey with me, and I will look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Bye bye.